Well, greetings and thanks for joining us today on episode number 110 on Lightbulb Moments. We're live on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out past Lightbulb Moment episodes at Qunity. If you're joining us live, thanks for being with us this morning. If you're listening to the recording of this or replaying on YouTube, thanks for experiencing this session, this special episode today. We're super excited about the topic. I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm the host and curator of Lightbulb Moments. Remember, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. At Qunity, we take what's confusing, overwhelming, and complicated to create a simpler path towards prosperity, whatever that means to you, applying the new rules of engagement, which is simple, visual, and actionable. And remember to prosper, manage your ATM, the three currencies we have in life: attention, time, and money. And it's not lost on us that you're spending your precious time with us. So thank you. Last week, we had Zach Rinkin of Living Proof, who had a great session. One of the topics that we covered was omni-channel, which is all of the different distribution channels going on today, what that means to you, how to take advantage of it. If you weren't joining us last week on that live, for sure listen to the YouTube session. I think Zach was a great guest. Today, we're going to be exploring a lightbulb moment of mine. And we are going to be unpacking something called zoom in and zoom out, which is really about exploring, we'll call it a strategy, a skill, a practice, a language, something that's often key and overlooked characteristic of leadership. Zoom in and zoom out is the ability to see the big picture and address the details needed for success. We'll be applying it to financial management, strategic planning, communication, all sorts of different good things. So we are going to get into this topic, and it's a way to combine and amplify two competing goals, which is preparing for the future and achieving greater near-term impact. Some of you might recall the concept of zoom in and zoom out as it is explored in our Money SBO program, but we're going much deeper into this. This could be my new favorite workshop going forward. I'm just going to give you a heads up. We're also going to incorporate some thought leadership that are coming from other resources, as well as a great article on strategic planning and why you should zoom out and zoom in. All right, well, this session, it's sponsored by Qunity, which is financial wellness for pro beauty, whether it's for students, professionals, or owners. Save the dates. We're in the 11th hour right now this weekend. We're starting Monday, actually. We'll have our Money SBO live workshop in Minnesota. This is the second time we've done this version of the workshop. The first time, the attendees reported a huge increase in financial confidence, 77%. Financial literacy jumped 60%, and 100% said they'd recommend it to others because they felt they were on a clearer path and have results to increase profitability, leveling up their finance function, and improving cash management. Also, big date coming up, of course, is the Phil. You should register for the Phil. I'm going to have some comments about the Phil today. The hotel, the Line Hotel, is a amazing property down in Austin. That's where the event is going to be held. The hotel room block is open. And if you haven't signed up for the conference, please do so, because we are going to go deep into tools and several other subjects. Remember, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother to try to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. Erin has launched her Money O2 podcast, and the latest episode was dropped. I think that's the right word. So check it out. Also, with the compensation study, reminder, those of you who have not gotten the report, let us know if you want it, how to get it, etc. We want to make sure we get this in as many people's hands as possible. Also, heads up, we will be opening up what we refer to as phase 3 of the study in the next upcoming weeks, which will be very powerful because we'll be able to then look at last year's data and this year's data and have trends. So stay tuned for that. We'd love to get very high participation in that. If you haven't gotten the report, the standard cost, don't worry about the standard cost. We just want to get it in your hands. Send us an email if you want a copy if you haven't gotten it, or put a note in the chat. Remember that the compensation study is really promoted through a new division within CUNITY, which is all about economic empowerment through actionable data and financial literacy, under the umbrella of the CUNITY Institute. All right, so let's unpack this whole idea of zoom in and zoom out, which is beyond an idea. As I've already mentioned, this is something that's a practice, it's a skill, it's a language. And I can't believe we didn't dive into this deeper in the past, because the more we get into it, the more I see how powerful it is. And at the end, there's going to be a bit of a punchline. So stay tuned to the end, because there is something that I'm going to announce today related with zoom in, zoom out. So certainly some analogies in terms of what we can look at with the concept of zoom in and zoom out is to look at binoculars, and then really we'll look at like up close eyeglasses. Another analogy would be binoculars and a magnifying glass. I happen to have a camera right here. Certainly this is an old school camera. Certainly we're taught in using a camera, which is now through different settings in your iPhone. We're used to this concept of zooming in and zooming out. You actually can even get zoom lenses, okay? And certainly in the field of photography, in the field of visuals, this is a very well-known different idea. And so zooming in it from a visual standpoint is to make an image of something or someone appear much larger and nearer, or much smaller and farther away. You zoom in to get a close-up view of your life, or zoom out to see more of life sort of reduced in finite chunks. So when we're talking about zooming in and zooming out, a lot of it might actually also relate to the difference between the forest and the trees, and understanding when you need to be deep into the forest, looking at the trees, working on the trees, growing the trees, and when you step back and look at the forest. Zoom in and zoom out is applied to our Money SBO course. For example, zooming in is a named every number, which is having specific individuals accountable for each line item on the P&L. So there's no doubt who is zooming in and being accountable for line items. Zooming out is a practice that is not taken advantage of enough as a financial management practice, which is also having an executive summary each month, quarter, or year. So instead of this multi-page report with a bunch of small numbers in the form of a P&L or some other financial statement or report, an executive summary is getting it down to one page, bumper sticker short. So you're able to see at a glance the performance. So it's a practice we teach in Money SBO. We also have tools to support the zoom in and zoom out approach. The other thing I want to make note of, staying with financial management, is most people that we work with are small businesses, and most small businesses we work with use QuickBooks. Built into QuickBooks and the reporting is the ability with clicks to be able to zoom in and zoom out in an instant. With the proper use of sub-accounts and the proper use of setting up your financials, P&L in particular, you're able to, with a handful of clicks, get your profit and loss statement down to a quarter page compared to maybe 3 pages through proper setup. So certainly built into financial reporting programs is the ability to zoom in and zoom out, so you can look at the financials from a big picture standpoint, and then also to be able to zoom out and zoom in and address the details. So those are some examples. Now in our execution system, we have certain calendars that are one page, is very visual, like a 5 functions and 8 seasons planner. which essentially gets everything down to one page, which is you're able to visually do something with it. But behind the scenes, in using 8 seasons and 5 functions, is the detail that goes into building a plan. So what I want to do next is I want to summarize certain things from an article here. And it's a great article by Deloitte, and where they really unpack the idea of strategic planning and why you should zoom in and out. And just a couple notes on this. One layer of the ability to zoom in and zoom out has to do with time frames. For example, in the case of strategic planning, zooming in would be a short-term time frame. Depending on your time frames, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, it could be a month. Okay. And then your zoom out time frames could be a year, 2 years, 3 years. Now, Deloitte talks about some much longer time frames, and they really talk about time frames zooming in being like 3, 6, or 12 months, and zooming out to be like a 5 to 10 year plan. That seems pretty far out in the future for many of us in the world of small business, where there's tremendous volatility. Key point here is the concept of zooming in and zooming out does pertain also to time frames. And so a zoom in time frame is what chunk of time is meaningful to you. I would just say, for simple purposes, I would say a month and a quarter. And then zooming out might be more like your annual plan. There's all sorts of challenges that go into execution and planning. And a zoom in and zoom out perspective gives you an approach. In fact, many digital technology companies have used this approach over several decades. And really, a lot of CFOs and other executives really can use a zoom in and zoom out approach for immediate strategic impact and to prepare for the long term. Other things that I just noted, as I'm going through this body of work, I've got some other ones in a moment here. These are 2 very different time horizons. The zoom out horizon, I've already mentioned, is going to be perhaps a year, 2 years, 3 years, or beyond. The other one is going to be a month, 6 months, or less. The zoom in and zoom out method assumes that if long and short-term plans are closely aligned, the mid-range will fall into place, which is super interesting. So if you deal with the 2 time horizons, what happens is what needs to get done also emerges very naturally. Zooming in also helps you identify opportunities and help to identify and agree on what near-term initiatives can most help accelerate the organization towards reaching its future potential. Other zoom in concepts is, determine one near-term initiative that would have the greatest ability to strengthen the company's existing core. The core is generating near-term profits to accelerate the journey, and determine what marginally performing activities could stop doing in the next 6 to 12 months that would free up resources. So part of zooming in also is saying what's most important and what can we let go of. Other things that I wanted to note on this is because this zoom in and zoom out approach includes short-term initiatives, this approach can also require companies' leaders to commit to regularly pausing and reflecting on what has been learned, accounting for both external developments and internal initiatives. So one of the reasons that we do the fill is that we know that leaders need to pause and reflect, and that is part of the zoom in and zoom out strategy. So zoom in and zoom out is a way to combine and amplify 2 competing goals, preparing for the future and achieving greater near-term impact. In an environment of accelerating change, this strategy may be less about current position and more about mapping a trajectory that includes a clear destination and a commitment to making progress through specific short-term steps. So I found that article to be super interesting. Where I want to go next is let's look at a legendary leader. And recently, I was going through something on Stephen Jobs. You know, they distilled his leadership lessons to maybe a dozen or so. And amongst his top leadership practices, some of it is just so on point here, is his ability to know both the big picture and the details. So if you look at Stephen Jobs, you know, he had huge passion for the large and the small. And, you know, some CEOs, some managers, some leaders are really great at vision, and some are better at the details. And in the case of like a Stephen Jobs, and what I would say many really great, effective leaders, is the ability to do both. So, which is, you know, really envisioning like an overall strategy and then focus on the tiniest aspects of design. So Stephen Jobs, even as he was laying out grand visions for changing the way we look at music and technology and computing and phone, et cetera, and photography, even as he was laying out these grand visions, he fretted over the shape and colors of screws inside the iMac. So he was known as being some maniacal with the details, and also being just a tremendous visionary. I found that to be super interesting. Other comments that really I have about zoom in and zoom out is that, you know, there's zoom in and zoom out is also a lens for which to look at eliminating the gaps in your business, gaps between low profitability and high profitability. Low staff engagement to high staff engagement, poor execution to great execution, weak leadership to strong leadership, and slow growth to fast growth. So the zoom in and zoom approach is a really, really great framework to look at the framework of the gaps. And to really look at the different functions of the business too. We frequently talk about the 5 functions: finance function, marketing, operations, education, and human capital. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to have a shorter session. I wanted to introduce you to the topic of zooming in and zooming out. And I also want to use this as an announcement, if I may. And so I'm going to come back up to pulling up some of the images here. And all right. So the fill, our theme, is zoom in, zoom out. What a great theme to really bring to the fill. Remember, the fill, the idea behind it is to fill your bucket, which will allow you to zoom out and gain perspective. And then the fill is also about filling the gaps in your business, which often requires a zooming in, doing the work, doing the details. And we will certainly cover both of those at the fill, the ability to zoom in and zoom out. So we thought it was a perfect theme for the fill, zoom in, zoom out. And you'll find how that comes to life at the fill. And we're super excited. So watch for more information to fill, how that theme plays out, what it means to you. And it's a good reminder to register for the event. And now I'm going to close a couple more comments on zoom in and zoom out in a moment. I did want to thank our sponsors, Lightheart Sanders and Ally Health. Lightheart Sanders is a great CPA firm, and Ally Health is virtual mental and mental health, as well as telemedicine. Reminder about the community different programs. And but a couple more things before we sign off here, and that is zoom in and zoom out also is a song. It's a song that is sung by Ringo Starr. And some of the language in the song is just so spot on. Zoom in to get a new perspective. Zoom out to see we're all connected. The distant stars are reachable. Every moment is teachable. And it's about shifting your paradigm. So anyway, guys, this is the beginning of where we're going to also be introducing some shorter sessions on light bulb moments, more to the point. I'd love to get any comments that you have about the zoom in and zoom out, as well as how you think that applies to you and your business. I'm going to take a quick moment, say hello to a few different people before we wrap up, including, let's see here, Andrea, Candace, and Casey, and Christine, and Connie, and Jan, and Jarrett, and Joe, and Karen, Kevin, Melissa, Sharon, Sonia, Susan, Todd, and I think I'm going to stop there. So, all right, guys, so that is what we've got today. This is going to be a record short light bulb moments. Expect more of these record short light bulb moments. We do have a great guest next week. Our guest next week is Luke Carlson, and Luke Carlson has been a guest twice before. He owns a small chain of fitness studios, and it's wonderful to bring into other industries and see how they are dealing with human capital. They're dealing with profitability. They're dealing with staff engagement. So Luke is a fantastic guest, and we're pleased to bring him back. So join us next Wednesday for Light Bulb Moments. We'll be on at the same time, same place. Thanks again for joining us today, and hope you enjoyed the zoom in and zoom out concept. Expect to hear more about it. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of the week.